Let me tell you something strange about the parts of you that never grew up. We live in a world that praises maturity, resilience, and strength. A world that tells you to move on, to be rational, to be productive. Yet inside many adults lives a quieter presence, younger, softer, still waiting. And here's the question that lingers beneath everything you do. Are you living your life, or are you protecting a wound that never learned it was safe to heal? It's easy to dismiss this idea, to say the past is over, that childhood is irrelevant now. But that's not the full picture. Beneath the surface, there's an entire psychology at play. One Carl Jung spoke about not as a metaphor, but as a living reality inside the psyche. What we call the inner child is not memory, it's continuity. See, for some people, pain doesn't disappear with time. It reorganizes itself. It becomes behavior, tone, silence, ambition, avoidance. And healing the inner child is not about reliving the past. It's about recognizing how the past still lives through you. This isn't about blame. It's about awareness. Because what remains unconscious doesn't vanish. It simply directs you from the shadows. You can see it in everyday life, in how you react more strongly than a moment seems to require, in how certain words cut deeper than they should, in how praise makes you uncomfortable, or how criticism feels unbearable. You might notice how you work endlessly, but never feel enough, or how intimacy feels dangerous, even when you want it. From the outside, it looks like personality, but underneath, something older is speaking. Psychologists noticed something fascinating. Much of what we call adult struggle isn't adult at all. It's the child still trying to survive in a world that once felt unpredictable. Jung believed the psyche is layered, and when a part of you is wounded early, it doesn't age naturally. It waits, frozen in time, waiting for conditions that feel safe enough to grow. And here's the reframe. It's not that you're broken, it's that a part of you was never met, never mirrored, never protected. And so it learned strategies instead of trust, compliance instead of expression, control instead of play, silence instead of need. For many, this begins quietly, not with trauma that looks dramatic from the outside, but with subtle absence, emotional neglect, inconsistency, love that was conditional, praise that came only when you performed. Over time, the child learns a rule. Being yourself is risky, so you adapt. You become what is needed. You become mature too early, responsible, helpful, invisible. But here's what's often misunderstood. That early adaptation looks like strength. People admire it. They call you wise for your age. But what they don't see is the cost. Because when the child becomes the adult later doesn't know how to rest, or receive, or ask. Jung spoke of this as a split between the persona you present and the inner figure you carry. The inner child holds your spontaneity, your creativity, your emotional truth. But when it's wounded, it also holds your fear. And the psyche, seeking balance, will protect that child at all costs, even if it means sabotaging relationships, even if it means staying small, even if it means never fully entering life. Because here's the deeper truth. Healing the inner child is not about becoming childish, it's about becoming whole. It's about allowing vulnerability to exist without punishment. It's about letting emotion move without immediately correcting it. The child doesn't need fixing, it needs witnessing. And culturally, we don't make this easy because, let's be honest, modern life rewards productivity, not presence, achievement, not attunement. We're taught to optimize ourselves, not understand ourselves. So when the inner child surfaces through anxiety, burnout, emptiness, we medicate it, distract it, silence it, anything but listen. But think about it. When was the last time you felt an emotion without explaining it away? When did you last allow sadness to exist without calling it weakness? And what parts of you learned long ago that feeling was unsafe? Not everyone avoids their inner child in the same way. Some numb themselves, others overachieve, some cling, some withdraw. These are not flaws, they are strategies, evidence of intelligence shaped by survival. But here's the paradox. What once kept you safe may now be what keeps you stuck. There's an existential layer here, because the inner child is not just about pain, it's about meaning. It's where your sense of wonder lives, your capacity for joy without utility. In a world that constantly says your worth must be earned, reconnecting with the inner child becomes an act of rebellion, a refusal to believe you must perform to deserve care. But healing is not instant, and it's not linear. Some people approach it gently, through reflection, others through therapy, others through art, solitude, or grief. And not everyone who turns inward finds peace immediately. For some, what surfaces first is anger, or sorrow, or fear. And that doesn't mean you're doing it wrong, it means you're listening. Jung believed the goal of life is individuation, the integration of all parts of the self, not the elimination of pain, but the expansion of consciousness. When the inner child is welcomed back into awareness, something shifts. You stop reacting automatically. You begin responding. You notice patterns without being consumed by them. Science echoes this. Research on emotional integration shows that people who develop self-compassion and emotional awareness experience greater nervous system regulation and resilience. The brain changes when it feels safe. The inner child doesn't need perfection. It needs consistency, presence, permission. And here's what's quietly powerful. As you heal this part of yourself, your relationship to the world changes. You stop seeking validation as desperately. You set boundaries without guilt. You choose relationships that feel reciprocal, not because you've hardened, but because you've softened in the right places. Sometimes this makes you misunderstood. People may say you've changed, that you're less accommodating, less available. But what they're really noticing is this: you've stopped abandoning yourself. And that kind of integrity can feel unsettling to those who still are. Maybe that's what true maturity looks like. Not emotional suppression, but emotional honesty. Not independence at all costs, but interdependence with boundaries. Not growing up by leaving the child behind, but by bringing them with you. There's something sacred in that process, because some parts of you didn't survive by becoming loud or dominant. They survived by staying quiet, and they deserve reverence, not correction. Healing the inner child is not about reopening old wounds endlessly. It's about finally closing the door gently with understanding. So if this reflection resonates, you don't need to rush. You don't need to label yourself. You don't need to fix anything today. Awareness is already movement. And sometimes the most profound healing happens simply by realizing you were never wrong for feeling the way you did. So the next time you notice yourself reacting strongly, or withdrawing, or longing for something you can't quite name, pause, listen. There may be a younger voice asking not for answers, but for company. And maybe, just maybe, healing your inner child doesn't mean rewriting your past. Maybe it means giving your present the safety your past never had. Because in the end, becoming whole isn't about becoming someone new. It's about finally making room for everyone you've always been.